you help me?
Sure.
People made eye contact. They moved. They said yes. He didn't even know what I was asking for help with. That was so easy to create that moment. So why don't we do it more often? Why don't we ask for help? I'm not sure that everyone appreciates how hard it is to ask for help. But with 4 simple words, I made action. I had helpers. You just saw on stage, practicing in public, people that needed help, and a whole bunch of people were here to help, including you, that were willing to take a break, right, and get started again. So why don't we do it? Why don't we ask for help? Part of the reason is because sometimes we actually can do it. We don't need help. We're standing independently. We can do it, right? We are one by one. We don't need help. Sometimes we don't ask for help because we're afraid of what other people might think. People might think we're unprepared or incompetent. And of course, sometimes we don't ask for help because we're afraid we won't get it. But just as we saw here in this room, we miscalibrate. We don't realize how willing other people are willing to help us. A team of psychology professors and business school professors a few years ago asked 2,000 people in the US to participate in a series of experiments where they would go out in public and ask people for help. And there were 3 surprising findings. The first was, number 1, how willing people were to ask for help. The second was that people, when they were asked for help, didn't feel inconvenienced or annoyed. And the third, and maybe most surprising, was how happy people were when they actually helped someone else. This miscalibration creates a psychological barrier. So we have an expectation that people won't help, so we don't ask for help. So how can we get from miscalibrating, as we might, even though these people were perfectly happy to help me, strangers I've never met, thank you, by the way. We're here today to think about what's monumental. Not the kind of monumental you see from space, but the kind of monumental about how we live together, how we connect, and how we lead both our lives and others. And here's the truth. A lot of times there's this myth of self-sufficiency, that to build big change, you need bold ideas and grit. That's true. But we're often not using a tool in our toolbox that is maybe more powerful than all of those things. And that is our human ability to ask for help. Asking for help isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. It triggers collaboration. It creates trust and connection. Right now, and you've heard it throughout the day, if you've been here all day, you're going to hear one more session behind me, you're going to hear it again. In a world right now where we're really struggling with mental health crises, with isolation, with AI disruption, one of the most human things we can do is to be human, is to ask other humans for help. And like the studies found, and we saw in this room, get the help that we're asking for. This is how we get to monumental change, our ability to connect, ask people for help, and receive it. Imagine this scenario. You're a professional athlete. This might be harder for some of us than for others. But you are one of the best at the game, and you're really struggling with just one part. What do? Do you just keep going? You are one of the best after all. Or do you ask for help? I don't know how many of you know who Coco Gauff is, but she is a world-renowned tennis player. And earlier this year, she asked for help with her serve. Now, that doesn't seem very spectacular, a tennis player asking for help with their serve. But she's no ordinary tennis player. She's a 21-year-old phenom who has won multiple world titles. She has held Grand Slam trophies, and she's ranked one of the best players in the world. but she has this legendary problem with her serve. So, in fact, in 2024, she hit more double faults, that's a mistake that you make when you're serving that costs you points, than any other player in the Women's Tennis Association. So what did she do? She hired a serving coach. She asked for help. But what is spectacular about this is that she did it during the US Open earlier this year. That meant she was practicing a brand new serving technique during a major tournament. And in the second round, essentially practicing in public, she served 7 double faults. Near tears, with 20,000 people watching live and thousands more watching on screens. She practiced in public. Her performance was called emotional and heartbreaking. She had asked for help, and this was the result. People were watching, but because people were watching and she was so willing to do it, that performance has also been called resilient, incredible, and inspirational. And when she was asked about this decision to make a major coaching change during a tournament, she said simply, "I just want to get better. I'm obsessed with the process of getting better." Asking for help is a sign of strength. And what she had done was pivot from thinking of herself as a person who needs help to thinking of a person who is in power, who asks for help. She did not win the tournament, but we'll be hearing more about Coco Gauff, I'm sure. This is a radical act of strength to ask for help, and it also helps create change. This is how I came to this work and what inspired me to give this talk, which is the work I've been doing in the past 2 decades across the country to help organizations create change. I work with students, I work with CEOs, executive directors. I'm gonna ask for help right now because Cody in the back, the screen has gone down. And I can keep going, but you might want to come out here and fix it. Thank you, Cody. I was in the back earlier when the team was practicing, and let's just say words flew, some words. And they included, where's the power? Thank you, Cody. So it's this connection between asking for help. It's a lot easier to do that when you've been asking for help, and I've been hanging out with Al and Cody and Eric, and they've been helping me for 2 days here. So thank you again to the team and all the volunteers also that are making this happen. So in my work, I work with students, I work with executive directors, CEOs. I work with people brand new to the workforce, and I work with people with decades of experience. And across the board, all the work that I have done in every place that I've ever been serving, I have seen people want to connect, want to create something new, want to do something bigger and better, but they rarely want to ask for help. So there must be something else at play, because we know that people are willing to ask for help. We know from studies that when people go out and ask for help, they get it. So what else might be at play? How many of you here like to fail? How many of you like to learn? So for those of us who are not in the room, lots of hands went up on the learning, not so much on the failing. So what's the difference between failing and learning? Earlier you saw Mr. Thomas from the community hospital. I think he would tell the same, but I was in a room once and did this about the failing and learning, and there was a physician, and they said, if I fail, someone could die. And I was like, okay, for most of us, right, failing and making mistakes, failing and learning, it sort of goes together. We learn, we make some mistakes, we learn again, and we might ask for help in between. From a teacher or even from instructions or something like that. Failing and asking for help are all steps toward creating real change. We probably all know who Steve Jobs is. He co-founded a company called Apple. And if you're looking for inspiration about failure, you can go out there and there's a YouTube video called Steve Jobs on Failure. It's part of an unscripted interview from 1994 that the Santa Clara Valley Historical Association conducted with Steve Jobs. And in it, he says one thing that's very obvious, which is, you gotta fail. Okay. But he also gives instructions right before he says you gotta fail. And he says, I've never found anybody who wasn't willing to help me when I asked for help. Okay, Apple co-founder. But then he tells a story about connecting the idea of failure and asking for help. He says most people never pick up the phone. They never call. They never ask. And when he was 12 years old, he picked up the phone. He called Bill Hewlett, one of the founders of Hewlett-Packard, and asked for some computer parts. He was 12 years old. He's asking for some computer parts for something that he's working on. Bill Hewlett helped him. Asking for help triggers collaboration. It can be a very messy process, asking for help. But right now, when the problems we face are so complex and the paths forward are so uncertain, it's more important than ever. Organizational researchers also have found that in organizations where they're working on tasks that are ambiguous as opposed to well-defined, that the organization is more likely to develop a helping culture, that people are more cognitively and emotionally connected to each other and more likely to work together to find joint resolutions. Successful helping doesn't happen when it's a one-off. It happens when it becomes part of your routine, when it's part of a process. Helping is contagious. And Norwegian philosopher Ivan Calvinus described it as positive spirals of reciprocity and collaboration. Asking for help can take lots of forms. I ask for help all the time. Today, I just did it on stage. I've asked for it in other places. My most common ways that I ask for help is to say, what do you think of this? What do you think of this idea? But I might also say, what haven't I thought of? Or what haven't I asked you about that you think is important that I should know? There's a ripple effect of asking for help. It empowers other people to do the same. It fosters vulnerability and resilience and collaboration. It leads to innovative ideas you can't discover alone and accomplishments that just aren't possible without other people. I'm not a person who needs help. I'm a person who asks for help. That pivot, that shift, isn't the end of independence. It's the beginning of possibility. Building trust, fueling collaboration, and unlocking the transformative power that we need to create monumental change all starts with 4 simple words. Can you help me? Thank you very much. And thanks for letting me practice.